Hey everybody, welcome to Rants by Michaela. So a couple of weeks ago, someone had leaked the fact that while the rest of the country had been distracted by the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard case, the Republicans were quietly and secretly trying to overturn Roe versus Wade without telling anybody, hoping that nobody would notice. And if you had asked me 17, 18 years ago, as a teenager, how did I feel about a Supreme Court case that opened the door for women to be able to have abortions? I would have said, I really don't understand it. I don't understand how having an abortion is being in control of your body when that's a baby that you're talking about. So you're killing your own child, and are proud about it. You feel that that's a part of women's empowerment. I don't believe in that. I'm a mother, and as soon as I found out I was pregnant, which both of my pregnancies were planned, my maternal instincts kicked in, and I couldn't wait to do everything in my power to be able to protect that child, not to terminate my pregnancy, because I didn't hate either one of my kids. But 18 years later, I am more educated in what's going on and why Roe versus Wade is so important. So one of the things that I've learned, over the past 18 years is that even when abortions have been criminalized or legalized, they have always been heavily in demand for one reason or the other. Either people feel like they are physically incapable of being able to take care of a child, mentally incapable, financially incapable. They are the victim of rape or incest, or even, including pedophilia. And not only is the abortion potentially necessary for their physical health, like when you have an ectopic pregnancy and the zygote gets stuck in the fallopian tube, and if it grows any more than that, it will rip the fallopian tube off. It will burst it, cause a massive amount of internal bleeding, and kill the woman who is pregnant. Or for the sake of your mental health, which is, you may not want to have your rapist baby. Being raped was bad enough, especially if you were raped by a family member. The last thing you want is to have to be reminded of that rape every single solitary day. Now, I have the utmost respect for women who say, my child was not to blame for that horrible event that happened to me. So I was still going to keep my baby, regardless of the fact that my baby is a product of rape. I have the utmost respect for anyone who's like that. I am also 100% completely understanding of any woman who says, nope, I cannot do it. I do not want to have to raise the reminder of the horrible event that happened to me every single solitary day. And I respect that. I fully support that. Now, another thing I used to wonder is, why was abortion such a big deal when there's this thing called birth control? What's the big deal about birth control? Now, I have absolutely no respect for a woman who says, I don't want to use condoms. My man doesn't like to use condoms. But I also don't want to be on birth control either because it's too many hormones. Translation, I'm trying to get pregnant. I'm not even going to try to prevent it. I'm trying to get pregnant because I'm hoping that baby makes 3 and then we can complete our family. And then that has a tendency to be the type of person who later on seeks out an abortion when she realizes the baby couldn't keep the man around. I don't have respect for women who are that weak-minded. But I do have the utmost respect for a woman who deals with the consequences of the fact that, unfortunately, an abortion is the only means of being able to make sure that you don't have to take care of this lifelong responsibility when you didn't want it. Because schools are not teaching about barrier methods of birth control like male, female condoms, the cervical cap, and the diaphragm. They're not teaching about hormonal methods of birth control like the birth control pill, the birth control patch, the NuvaRing, the Depo shot. They're not teaching about non-hormonal, non-barrier methods of birth control like spermicide, vaginal sponges that carry spermicide inside of them, IUDs and the implants. See, I'm from California, and it is a requirement to take 6 weeks of sex ed to learn about all of these methods of birth control, how to properly put on a condom, the difference between water-based and oil-based lubricants, as well as water-based and oil-based lubricated condoms, different methods of birth control that put the female in control of her body, like vaginal sponges and spermicides and hormonal methods of birth control, that sort of thing, as well as STIs. What it means to come in contact with an STI, the difference between bacterial and viral STIs, which ones can simply be treated and which ones can be cured. I'm not going to go ahead and give a sex ed tutorial right now, but one of the things that I didn't know growing up in California is that California is spoiled in the regard that we slowly but surely start teaching sex education at the early age of 9, because back when I was growing up, we had believed that 9 years old was the earliest that a girl could start her menstrual cycle. So we would, for one day out of the school year, pull all the girls to the side into a classroom that had nothing but female teachers, and then pull all the boys to the side into a classroom that had nothing but male teachers. And everybody was in a safe zone to learn about how they're going to start going through puberty and learn how their reproductive system is going to operate, and then be in a safe space to ask as many questions as they wanted to ask in a confidential environment where none of those questions were going to go back and be told to the parent. As long as no one had disclosed any information about having been abused, everything that was said in that environment was confidential. I was unaware that outside of California, schools do not do that. They do not create that safe space for kids to be educated. As a result, the only method of quote unquote birth control that they are aware of is abortion. They are not being educated in what they need to know to prevent the pregnancy from happening in the first place. The other reason why Roe versus Wade is so important and why it's so necessary to protect a woman's right to control her own body and protect her reproductive rights is because the idiots who are trying to overturn this law have absolutely no education in obstetrics and gynecology. They don't even know the difference between a scientific zygote and an actual baby. I've heard one senator say that he thought life starts at fertilization. Absolutely not. You can fertilize as many eggs as you want to, and if that woman's uterus cannot carry a child, it will pass through her body and come out just like any other regular month where she experiences ovulation. So that's not true. I've heard people say that life starts at conception. Not necessarily true. The fertilized egg can implant against the uterus. That will not guarantee a heartbeat. If there is never a heartbeat, there is no chance that that fertilized egg would have ever grown to become a life. So that's false. Then people say, well, then life starts at the sign of a fetal heartbeat. Also not true. If you speak to a specialist with regards to in vitro fertilization, you can fertilize an egg and keep it in there marinated, conceived by a petri dish, and duplicate the fetal heartbeat within a petri dish outside of the womb. If that fertilized egg that has begun to have a heartbeat is not implanted into a uterus, which will then be its host, the fetal heartbeat will eventually die down. Did you just kill a child in that moment when you didn't implant the fertilized egg into its host to be able to grow? No, not at all, because that wasn't a baby anyway. It was just a fertilized egg that started beating. It's no different than looking at a seed that's just a seed. It hasn't sprouted into a tree yet. Otherwise, every single time you eat a freaking almond or a strawberry or a banana or a sunflower seed, you have just committed an abortion against a freaking plant. It doesn't make any kind of sense. But now I also understand that medically Barrier methods of birth control are not 100% effective. Neither are hormonal methods of birth control. Women have done everything that they needed to do to try to prevent the pregnancy, and it still hasn't worked. They've still gotten pregnant on the pill, still gotten pregnant on the patch, still got pregnant on the NuvaRing, still got pregnant while on the Depo shot. Some people didn't even know they were pregnant until after they had given birth. What happens when you do everything right and still something happens? And you know you are not equipped to become a mother. You go to your local physician and you have a conversation with him about what is in your best interest for the sake of your physical health, your mental health, and your psychological health, as well as your financial health. And whatever you say in that room, whatever procedures you and your physician deem to be appropriate, whatever medications you need to be on that you guys deem to be appropriate, is between you and that physician. And that is it. What's going on with your body is nobody else's business but you and your doctors and the nurses who are assisting your doctor. That is why it is so important to make sure Roe versus Wade is not overturned. There are so many different ways to have to look at this thing, and the politicians who are trying to overturn this law, they're not looking at it using any of the ways that I've just described to you. They're thinking with their Christian minds, forgetting that the United States is not a Christian extremist country, and saying, oh, well, we recognize a baby's existence at fertilization, so once the egg has been fertilized, that's it, you're screwed. Now go and have babies. Do what you're supposed to do, which is be fruitful and multiply. Forgetting that some of the women's bodies that they're trying to control are not Christians and don't have to worship the same God that they worship. So we don't have to do what their God said to do, which is be fruitful and multiply. Something they may want to take into consideration when they decide they're going to swear to uphold the law and the Constitution of the United States. Anyway, that's my rant for today on this topic. There will be a part 2. I hope you guys have a great day.